No, no, no! Julia Donahue was at BII Hunter's Essentials, picking up a few items she needed for her trip to Stanley, Idaho. She gathered a machete, heavy-duty rope, a powerful flashlight, a tent, and camping gear, and brought it all over to the counter. "I'd like to buy a rifle. Here's my ID." The man behind the counter had been watching her for some time now. The minute she walked in, he knew this woman wasn't like any ordinary woman. She looked very fit and strong. She obviously knew about all the gear she was selecting. Taking a look at the woman's license, the man nodded and asked her, "Were you in the army?" Julia gave the man a stern look. She didn't have the time nor the patience to have an unnecessary conversation with anyone. "How much is this one?" Awkwardly, the man calculated the price of everything. "That will be $289. Julia swiped her debit card, typed in her PIN, and took her receipt and bags from the counter and left the store in a hurry. She still had a few more things to prepare for the journey. She didn't know how long she would need to stay in Stanley, but she wasn't returning until she got done what she needed to do. Julia dropped everything in her trunk and drove back to her house. One of her friends, Leah, was coming over to bid her farewell. As Julia began packing a few gallons of water and some dry food, she heard the doorbell ring. There was Leah, looking awfully worried. "Julia, do you really have to do this? Leah, are you here to talk me out of it? Because it's not going to work. Please don't do this." "No, Leah, I have to." Julia took out the duffel bag to the car. She locked up the house and waved goodbye to Leah before she set off. The journey to Stanley would take about 6 to 7 hours from Salt Lake City in Utah, and by the time she would reach there, it would be near sunset. The weather in Idaho was cold. It was 5:45 when Julia reached the cabin. The sky started to become cloudy. This cabin was practically in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by the woods and forest, far from town. She parked the car beside the cabin, and first of all things, she placed the machete in her boots, went out to her trunk, and wore the rifle over her shoulder, before she started unpacking everything else. Julia was determined, no matter how difficult the night might be, there was nothing that could deter her. She was going to spend the night in this cabin, alone. The wooden cabin wasn't of much use apart from having a roof over her head, though the roof even had a few holes. The winds were starting to pick up, and the wooden panels of the windows opened and shut on its own. Julia walked over, wrenched the panels off, and dropped it onto the ground. Now she had a better view. She scanned the woods from her window. There was still a little light in the skies, but the woods were so dense she couldn't see far. After dropping everything inside, Julia went outside again and took a walk around the cabin. She could hear the rumbling thunder in the air. It seemed that there would be rain tonight. As the skies fell dark, Julia returned inside and set up her tent. She lit her lantern and sat down to the sound of the nature around her, and nothing but the nature. Shh. She could hear owls hooting in the distance, the buzzing sound of the crickets chirping. And as she expected, a light shower began. Julia looked up, feeling the rain sprinkling on her face through the hole in the roof. She quickly dragged all her things to the other side, but here too, the crack in the wall allowed a lot of wind to seep in, and the temperature suddenly dropped significantly. Watching the bugs and insects crawl up to the light of the lantern, Julia sighed. She sat there on guard, prepared for what was to come. The rain only lasted a little while. At around 9 p.m., Julia had her dinner, impatiently checking her watch every 10 minutes. She tore pieces of beef jerky and swallowed them down with water as she kept her eyes focused on the surrounding woods through the window. She couldn't overlook anything. This place couldn't be trusted. The isolation was nothing but deception. It was past 1 a.m. now. Last time, it happened around 11 p.m. But today, so far, there was no sign of anything. Julia decided to go a little further out on the property. She turned on her flashlight and headed towards the woods, where she thought she saw something shift among the trees. Pointing her flashlight in the exact direction, Julia searched the area, but there was nothing anymore. Suddenly hearing a slight noise from the cabin again, she barely spotted a figure standing there in the distance, covered by the darkness of the night. It slowly started to crawl out of the darkness, and Julia too grabbed her rifle and stormed towards it. "I'm not afraid of you." The hideous being suddenly quickened its pace as it came running towards Julia, but there was not a sign of distress nor fear on her face. She shot it once, twice, her only target aimed at it. But she had missed both times, when suddenly she heard the sound of it grunt. She could see it stumble back as it began to run the other way, now limping on its leg, into the woods. Julia ran after it, stopping to see the ground stained in a viscous black liquid. "You can run now, but you'll never be able to hide." She quickly ran into the woods, following the trail of black liquid, barely spotting its presence far through the trees. She knew it wouldn't be able to go on with that wound. And sure enough, Julia soon had it at her mercy. This was her one and only chance. It was now or never. The rain suddenly began to pour again, and Julia stood up, seeing the creature fall to the ground. She could hear the sound of her own boots stepping over the moist twigs and grass. She walked up to it, now laying lifeless, the forest ground stained in black. It was almost 6 months ago when Julia received news that she had inherited property in Stanley, Idaho from her late maternal grandfather. "I didn't even know Grandpa owned this land. He never mentioned it to any one of us. 87 acres of land. Do you know how much this land would cost? We should go check it out." "But it's practically in the middle of nowhere. Apparently there's nothing on the property except for a broken cabin. Where are we going to stay?" "Let's take our tents. It'll be a fun trip." So Julia and her husband Victor prepared for the trip, taking some food, water, and camping gear. It was a long drive, but they got there sometime late in the afternoon. The wooden cabin was old, in horrible condition, and the rest of the land was nothing but forest, acre after acre. "There is no way we can stay in here. It's still a roof. Let's set up the tent inside." There was still time to sunset, so the couple decided to walk around and enjoy the nature. But as they left the cabin and headed in that direction, Julia suddenly stopped, a little frightened to see something quite bizarre. "Victor, come back here and take a look at this. I don't think we should go out into the woods." "What?" The couple stared at large claw marks on a rather thick and sturdy tree. "Maybe there's a bear around here. And what are we going to do if a bear attacks us?" "Miss MMA fighter, you can always kill the bear with your bare hands and protect me like a good wife would." Haha, very funny. Julia pushed her husband as he laughed out. "What did you expect? We're out in the wilderness. Of course there's going to be wild animals." "I'm not going out there. We might even get lost. This place doesn't even have any boundaries." "Come on, let's take a few more steps. I saw it on the map. There should be a lake around here." So on Victor's insistence, the couple continued walking through the woods. Amazed when they found a beautiful lake a distance away. This place is beautiful. Why would your grandfather just abandon it? I don't know, maybe it's dangerous. You're still thinking about the bear? There are wild animals everywhere, Julia. After taking a nice stroll around the lake, the couple headed back to unpack and prepare dinner. Why don't you take all the things to the cabin and fix up the tent? And I'll go collect some wood to start a bonfire. As Victor walked around picking up twigs and dry leaves, Julia went around to the car and began unloading. She was carrying the gallons of water back when she heard a buzzing noise from behind the cabin. Curiously, she walked there. But when she saw what was on the other side, she screamed out, dropping all the water over. Hearing Julia, Victor rushed over to suddenly get a whiff of something putrid. Julia was holding her nose, looking horrified as she pointed across from her. "What is that?" Victor widened his eyes, seeing a half-eaten deer laying there. He looked at Julia in shock. "What did you do? You had dinner already? You ate without me?" "What? I didn't do anything. That's gross. Come on, let's get out of here. My stomach is churning." As the skies became dark, Victor set up a bonfire and helped Julia set the tent inside. They then sat in the open and ate the sandwiches Julia had packed. But as for water, I guess we'll have to spend the night without water. We still have juice. Or if we get too thirsty, I can drink that juice and you can always go back to that lake. When the couple started to hear the thunder rumbling in the skies, they decided to head inside. The cabin had holes in the roof, and the walls didn't help much to keep the winds out. They quickly got into their tent and zipped up, listening to the rain pouring outside. "Are you sure it's safe?" "Don't worry, everything will be fine. We're inside the cabin." The couple fell sound asleep. But it was some time later in the night that Victor woke up to a strange noise outside. He sat up listening to the sound of something grunting around the tent. He immediately woke up Julia, and they both stepped out, holding whatever they had in defense. But the room was empty. "False alarm." "You scared me, Victor. You play too much," Julia said, turning around to head in the tent. When she froze, seeing a dark figure to the corner of the room. This was no bear. "Victor, what is that?" The creature jumped out of the darkness towards Julia. Victor immediately pulled her away and just barely managed to throw the creature down before he grabbed Julia's hand and ran outside. "Get in the car!" he yelled as he scrambled through his pockets for the keys. The couple just barely managed to shut the doors when they heard the creature jump onto the car, denting the roof. "Victor, hurry!" "I'm trying, it's not working." The car wouldn't start up, and the creature now jumped onto the windshield, cracking a portion of the glass and ripping off the hood of the car. When it continued to bang on the glass, the couple began to panic, looking at each other. "What are we going to do?" "He can't chase both of us. I'll go in this direction first and lure it the other way. And you go in the other direction. There's a gas station about a mile away. You can get help there. I'll try to distract it and reach there around the other side." Looking at the creature just seconds away from breaking through, Victor got off the car and ran. At once, the creature ran after him, as Victor screamed out, "Julia, now, go!" Julia got off the car on the other side and ran into the woods. couldn't help but stop and look back, but when she did, she couldn't bear what she saw. No. No! Seeing it laying there, Julia finally felt relief. She had promised herself she would come back. Every painful day of preparing for this now felt like it was worth it, knowing she had avenged the death of her husband. This was for you, Victor. Now she could finally go back home in peace. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.